Hey everyone, welcome to Prayer and Practice. We're going to be reading more of the first book of Enoch today. Um, Last time during our live, uh, we read from chapters 14 to 24. I originally only meant to read up to 21 because each time I try to read exactly 7 chapters, because 7 is a godly number. So I'm actually going to be starting back to chapter 21, and we're going to read up to chapter 28. Here, let me clean my camera. Sorry, it's a little blurry. I don't know. That didn't seem to help much. For some reason, my camera is a little blurry, so I hope you'll forgive me. By the way, I'm a new YouTuber. My name's Ian. My channel is called Prayer and Practice, and I make all sorts of content about extra biblical books like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Giants, as well as commentary about the Bible. And I make lots of other Christian content about Christian encouragement and about my own personal journey. You can't see it right now because I'm not using my wheelchair right now. I'm on the floor, but I have a physical disability um, where I am actually uh, I have severe muscle weakness from my neck down. So I'm not truly paralyzed per se, but I am physically disabled, and as a part of that, some of my videos also cover um, the relation between disability and faith. So, if all of that interests you, I invite you to like and subscribe. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's get reading. Uh, all right, here we go. All right, this is chapter 21 of the first book of Enoch. And I proceeded to where things were chaotic, and I saw something horrible there. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a chaotic and horrible place. And there I saw 7 stars of heaven, bound together in it, like great mountains, and burning with fire. Then I said, for what sin are they bound? And on what account have they been cast into here? Then Uriel, one of the holy angels, who was with me and was chief over them, spoke and said, Enoch, why do you ask, and why are you eager for the truth? These are of the number of the stars of heaven which have transgressed the command of the Lord, and are bound here until 10,000 years. The time entailed by their sins are consummated. And from there I went to another place, which I was still more horrible than the former. And I saw a horrible thing, a great fire there which burned and blazed, and the place was cleft as far as the abyss, being full of great descending columns of fire. I could see neither its extent or magnitude, nor could I conjecture. Then I said, how fearful is the place, and how terrible to look on. Then Uriel answered me, one of the holy messengers who was with me, and said to me, Enoch, why do you have such fear and fright? And I answered, because of this fearful place, and because of the spectacle of pain. And he said to me, this place is the prison of the messengers, and they will be imprisoned here forever. Pretty intense stuff, huh? So just to recap, Enoch in chapter 21 has been taken to one of the 10 heavens, um, well, in the literature, it's usually referred to as the 10 heavens, but this is actually the realm that a lot of us would call the abyss. And we read about the abyss in the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation, it talks about the fallen angels uh, being put in chains and being cast into the abyss. And it also talks about the devil and the Antichrist and his angels all being cast into the lake of fire. And what Enoch is describing is similar to the abyss and similar to the lake of fire that is mentioned in the book of Revelation. And if we go back to chapter 20, it says that the archangel Uriel is actually the ruler or the overseer of this abyss where these fallen angels, known as the Watchers, are being kept. It's very interesting to note that it says that there are columns, or some translations say pillars of fire. That's really interesting because in the book of Exodus, it says that when God leads the Israelites out of Egypt, it says he appears as a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And so it's very interesting that one of the aspects of this hell dimension that these watchers are being kept in is filled with pillars of fire. It's just a very interesting little reference, and I'm not sure if the pillars of fire are um, is actually kind of like a reference back to the book of Exodus, or if these are completely separate pillars of fire that have nothing to do with God. Um, I'm drawing a blank, but in the New Testament, I forget the exact verse, but it says our God is a consuming fire. Um, so I'm not sure what the exact relation is between these pillars of fire and you know, God Himself. But if this place is truly supposed to be hell, um, it seems that it would be devoid of God, because God, or one of the defining definitions of hell is it is the absence of God. So, and these watchers have been completely forsaken. So yeah, it seems that maybe these pillars of fire have nothing to do with the pillars of fire mentioned in the book of Exodus. But let's read on to chapter 22. So this is chapter 22 of the book of Enoch. And then I went to another place. All right, so this is another one of the heavens. And then I went to another place, the mountain of hard rock. Not the music, but that would be kind of funny. The mountain of hard rock. And there were 4 hollow places. In it, deep and wide and very smooth. Oh, how smooth the hollow places are, and deep and dark to look at. Then Raphael answered, one of the holy messengers, who was with me, and said to me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. Yes, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble here, and these places have been made to receive them until the day of their judgment, and until their appointed period, until the great judgment comes on them. I saw the spirit of the dead man making suit, that's prayer, and his voice went out to heaven and made prayer. And I asked Raphael, the messenger who was with me, and I said to him, this spirit which makes suit or prayer, who is it? whose voice goes out and makes suit to heaven? And he answered me, saying, This is the spirit which went out from Abel, from his brother Cain's slough, and he makes his suit against him until his seed is destroyed from among the seed of men. Then I asked regarding it, and regarding all the hallowed places, why is one separated from the other? And he answered me and said to me, These three have been made that the spirits of the dead might be separated, and such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteous, in which there is the bright spring of water, and such has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed on them in their lifetime. Here their spirits will be set apart in the great pain until great day of judgment, and there will be punishment and torment of those who are cursed forever, and retribution for their spirits. There he will bind them forever, and such a division has been made for the disclosures concerning their destruction, that when they were slain in the day of sinners, such has been made for the spirits of men who were not righteous but sinners, who were complete in transgression, and they will be companions of transgressors, but their spirits will not be slain in the day of judgment, nor will they be raised from there. Then I blessed the Lord of glory and said, Blessed is my Lord, the Lord of righteousness, who rules forever. Interesting. So that was chapter 22 of the book of Enoch. I just want to make a few comments on chapter 22. That's very interesting. If we go to the book of Matthew, or the Gospel of, I believe it's the Gospel of Matthew, there's a story that Jesus tells called the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, we see that the rich man goes into this place of torment, and Lazarus goes to what's called Abraham's bosom. And it says that there's this great chasm between Abraham's bosom and the place of torment for the rich man. And it's very interesting because in the book of Enoch, chapter 22, it mentions this underworld, and it mentions how the righteous are separated from the unrighteous, and that there's a great chasm between them. So this is very interesting because it seems to relate to the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. It also talks about how these spirits are essentially waiting for the day of judgment. So they're not in heaven or hell, but they are awaiting the final judgment, which is interesting, because in the New Testament and in broad Christian circles, a lot of people believe that when people die, they either go directly to heaven or directly to hell. But the book of Enoch suggests that there's actually holding places for the spirits of the dead, and that they are not yet judged until the great judgment. So that's pretty interesting. What else was I going to say? I also think it's really interesting that one of the spirits that Enoch is shown is the spirit of Abel. And it says that Abel is continually praying for Cain's lineage to be wiped out. one of the interesting things about that is if we go to the book of Genesis, it says that after Cain slew Abel, it says that Abel's blood cried out to the Lord. And so I'm wondering if the phrase Abel's blood cried out to the Lord is relating in some way to how it's talking about Abel praying for justice against Cain. There may be some kind of connection there, but very interesting stuff. So now let's go on to chapter 22 of First Enoch. From there I went to another place to the west of the ends of the earth, and I saw a burning fire which ran without resting and did not cease from its course day or night, but ran regularly. And I asked, saying, What is this that which does not rest? Then Raguel, one of the holy messengers who was with me, answered me and said to me, This course of fire which you have seen is the fire in the west, which persecutes all the luminaries of heaven. So there's another realm which Enoch visits, and it's a place of punishment for disobedient stars. Now, in the Bible, sometimes the words star and angel are used interchangeably, but the thing is back in chapter 21, we see that the terms star and angel are used interchangeably. But in chapter 23, it just uses the term stars. And so it's not clear if these are astronomical stars or if these are angelic stars. Some people suggest that there's a type of angel involved in nature called a virtue, and that virtues are angels that are actually responsible for carrying out the functions of the physical universe. So you could actually argue that things like stars are a type of angel known as a virtue, which is that gets into angelology, and that goes beyond the book of Enoch and what we're going to cover here. But if anybody's interested in me covering angelology or angel related stuff in the future, leave it in my comment section if that's something you're interested in, and I might cover it in the future. But yeah, that was chapter 23. It's a very short chapter. Very short chapter. Let's go on to chapter 24. All right, this is chapter 24. And from there I went to another place of the earth, and he showed me a mountain range of fire which burned day and night. And I went beyond it and saw 7 magnificent mountains, all different from each other, and the stones thereof were magnificent and beautiful, magnificent as a whole, and glorious appearance, and fair exterior. The 3 toward the east, 1 founded on the other, and 3 toward the south, 1 on the other. And the deep, rough ravines, not one of which joined with any other part. And the 7th mountain was in the midst of these, and it excelled them in height, resembling the seat of a throne, and fragrant trees encircled the throne, and among them was a tree such as I had never yet smelled, neither was any neither was any among them, nor were any others like it. It had fragrance beyond all fragrance, and its leaves and blooms and wood do not wither forever. And its fruit is beautiful, and its fruit resembles dates, of a palm. Then I said, how beautiful and fragrant this tree is, and its leaves are fair, and its blooms are very delightful in appearance. Then Michael, one of the holy and honored messengers, who was with me and was their leader, answered. All right, so now that was chapter 24. Now this is chapter 25. And he said to me, Enoch, why do you ask me regarding the fragrance of the trees? And why do you, saying, I wish to know about everything, but especially about the trees? And he answered, saying, this high mountain, which you have seen, whose summits is like the throne of God, is his throne, where the Holy Great One, the Lord of glory, the perpetual King, will sit when he will come down to visit the earth with goodness. And as for this fragrant tree, no mortal is permitted to touch it until the great judgment when he will take vengeance on all and bring everything to its consummation forever. It will then be given to the righteous and holy. Its fruit will be for food to the chosen ones. It will be transplanted to the holy place, to the temple of the Lord, the perpetual King. Then they will rejoice with joy and be glad, and they will enter into the holy place, and its fragrance will be in their bones, and they will live a long life on earth, such as your fathers lived. And in their days no sorrow, or plague, or torment, or calamity will touch them. Then I bless the God of glory, the perpetual King, who has prepared such things for the righteous, and has created them, and promised to give to them. So, let's put chapter 24 and chapter 25 together. All right? So, in chapter 24, it talks about how there are these 7 mountains, and each one is made of different precious stones. This is very interesting because if you go to the end of the book of Revelation, it talks about the New Jerusalem coming down, and all the walls of the New Jerusalem, each wall is made of a different precious stone. Likewise, if you read the end of the book of Tobit, which is another deuterocanonical book, in I believe chapter 13 of Tobit, 12 or 13 of Tobit, it mentions that there will be a new Jerusalem, and that all its roads will be made of different precious stones. And so we see in not only the book of Enoch, but also in the book of Revelation, the book of Tobit, this idea of heaven being composed of different precious stones. Now, in the book of Revelation, it mentions 12. There are 12 walls, and each one is made of a different precious stone. But in the book of Enoch, it mentions 7 mountains, and each of these 7 mountains is made of a different precious stone. And so, although we get the overlap of the precious stones in all 3 books, Tobit, Revelation, and Enoch, one talks about roads, one talks about stone, one talks about walls, and one talks about mountains. I'm not entirely sure what the relation between all 3 of them is, except that they're all visions of a future heaven or Jerusalem, and they're all containing and being made up of precious stones. One thing that's very interesting to note that's different with the book of Enoch than the other 2 books that I mentioned is that the other two books I mentioned actually name specifically the types of stones, where in the book of Enoch it just says the mountains are made of precious stones. So it doesn't actually go into detail what type of stones these precious stones are, which is rather curious, you know. So I'm not entirely sure why that is. Um, but it is an interesting connection. And then going on to chapter 25, it mentions this tree that is more fragrant and more beautiful than any tree ever imagined. And it says after the great judgment, that the righteous will get to eat from this tree. And it says that this tree is similar to a date tree or a date palm. And date palms are similar to fig trees, um, which is interesting because some people have speculated that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the book of Genesis in the Garden of Eden, some people have speculated that it wasn't an apple, but that it was a fig tree. And one of the reasons why a lot of people speculate that it was a fig tree is because they covered themselves with fig leaves and they said that the fruit was sweet. And so the fact that says that this tree of later on it's going to call this the tree of wisdom is sweet, and that it resembles a date palm, um, that might add some validity to the idea that the original tree of knowledge good and evil was similar to like a date or fig tree. So very interesting stuff. And by the way, it says that it's promised to the chosen ones after the judgment. So very interesting. I believe it's at the end of the book of Ezekiel and also the book of Revelation. It talks about the tree of life will be present in the New Jerusalem. So the book of Enoch uses the word tree of wisdom. So it's interesting. I'm not sure if they're talking about the same tree or if the book of Enoch is saying that the tree of wisdom is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and it will be in the New Jerusalem, and that also the tree of life will be in the New Jerusalem, and that people will be able to eat from both for some reason, or if it's just one or the other. Not entirely sure about that. I would probably have to go back and reread Ezekiel and Revelation to cross-reference it. Yeah, one of the things that's kind of annoying is I'm not really able to share my screen. I don't think I am, at least. If I was, I would pull up some Bible verses so that I could. Oh, I might actually. I might actually be able to share my screen. Give me a second. Sorry. Let me see here. I don't know. Are you guys able to see my screen? I went to share screen. Tree of Life, Book of Ezekiel. Yeah, it's at the end of the book of Ezekiel in chapter 47. It says the tree of life is described as bearing fruit every month and having leaves that heal nations. Um, let's see. Yeah, I'll have to do it a separate time. But yeah, the book of Ezekiel does mention the tree of life being um, there. So interesting. But let's move on to chapter 26. Chapter 26 says this. It says, "And I went from there to the middle of the earth, and I saw a blessed place in which there were trees with branches abiding and blooming. And there I saw a holy mountain, and underneath the mountain to the east there was a stream, and it flowed towards the south. And I saw another mountain higher than this toward the east, and between them a deep and narrow ravine. In it also ran a stream underneath the mountain, and to the west thereof there was another mountain, lower than the former, and of small elevation, and a deep and dry ravine between them, and another deep and dry ravine was at its extremities of the three mountains. And all the ravines were deep and narrow, being formed of hard rock, and trees were not planted on them. And I marveled at the rock, and I marveled at the ravine. Yes, I marveled very much." That's chapter 26. So, not a lot happens in chapter 26. Um, but there is a curious verse in chapter 26. And it's where he says, "I saw a blessed place in which there were trees with branches abiding and blooming." And it's very interesting that he uses the word abiding, abiding and blooming to describe these trees. Because in the Gospels, Jesus says, "I am the vine and you are the branches." And he says, "Whoever abides in me will bear much fruit." And so, this language of trees abiding and blooming, it seems related to, possibly related to that idea. Um, Other than that, um, there isn't a whole lot that stands out to me in chapter 26. So, yeah, kind of kind of strange. Um, doesn't seem to be a lot happening in chapter 26, but let's read chapter 27. "Then I said, for what purpose is this blessed land which is entirely filled with trees, and the accursed valley between?" Then Uriel, one of the holy messengers who was with me, answered and said, "This accursed valley is for those who are accursed forever. Here are all the accursed will be gathered together who utter unseemly words with their lips against the Lord, and speak hard things of his glory. Here they will be gathered together, and here will be their place of judgment. In the last days there will be the spectacle of righteous judgment on them in the presence of the righteous forever. Here the merciful will bless the Lord of glory, the perpetual King. in the days of judgment over the former. They will bless him for the mercy in accordance with which he has assigned them their lot. Then I blessed the Lord of glory, and set out his glory, and lauded him gloriously. Okay, so what do we see in this chapter, chapter 27? Well, he has, all right, there's this land filled with trees, and then there's this valley. And the thing is the valley is reserved for a specific type of sinner. It says that the valley is for those who are accursed, for those who speak unseemly words with their lips against the Lord and speak hard things of his glory. So this valley is not just for any old sinners. This valley is mentioned to be specifically for blasphemers. The valley is specifically for those who blaspheme against the Lord. Interesting. And it says, in the last days, there will be the spectacle of righteous judgment on them in the presence of the righteous forever. So it says that the righteous are going to see these blasphemers be judged. And it says here, the merciful will bless the Lord of glory, the perpetual King. In the days of judgment over former, they will bless him for the mercy in accordance with which he has assigned them their lot. So you notice how the valley is for those who spoke out against God. The valley is for those who blaspheme God. But it says that the righteous will bless God, that they'll praise him. So as the blasphemers are being punished for their blasphemy, the righteous are actually doing the opposite so the worshipers are being put in clear what would you call it, like clear relief between the unrighteous and the righteous. So yeah, you've got the valley of the blasphemers, and then you've got the trees of the righteous. All right, this is chapter 28. This is going by pretty fast. A lot of these chapters aren't that long. And then I went toward the east into the midst of the mountain range of the desert, and I saw a wilderness, and it was solitary, full of trees and plants, and water gushed out from above, rushing like a copious watercourse, which flowed toward the northwest. It caused clouds and dew to ascend on every side. That's chapter 28. So you've got, in chapter 28, you've got this desert, but in the wilderness of the desert, it says that there's this oasis full of plants and trees. And it says, and water gushed out from above, rushing like a copious water course, which flowed toward the northwest. So we probably would have to read on to chapter 29 to know what that's talking about. But it seems like it might be relating to the book of Jeremiah. In the book of Jeremiah, it says, blessed are those who, uh, you know, trust in the Lord, for they will be planted by the river and they will bear much fruit, right? Um, let's compare chapter 28 of book of Enoch to what it says in the book of Jeremiah. Sorry. In the book of Jeremiah. Yeah, it's Jeremiah 17. Let's go to the New King James. It says, you gotta go through up to chapter or verse 10. Yeah, it says, "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose hope is the Lord, for he shall be like tree planted by waters, which spreads out its roots by a river, and will not fear when heat comes, but its leaf will be green, and he will not be anxious in the year of drought." And then if we go to the verse just before that, it says, or 2 verses before that, 5. It says, "Cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs. He will be like a shrub in the desert, and shall see and not see good when it comes, but he will inhabit parched places in the wilderness." So if we read chapter 28 of the book of Enoch, it seems to be related to Jeremiah chapter 17, which is very interesting if you think about it. Yeah. So let's that was all I was intending on reading. That went really quick because really there's no one here to ask any questions or anything. So without anyone asking questions, um, it didn't take that long to read through all this. So unless anybody shows up and has any questions, I might give it a minute or two. That's all the reading for tonight. That looks like it's it. So it was a short session tonight. Again, this has been Prayer and Practice. My name's Ian. If you enjoy learning more about the Book of Enoch and about the Bible and all the other books that didn't quite make it into the Bible but have a lot of important and interesting things to say, follow my channel, subscribe, and continue on the journey with me as we learn more about the Lord. God bless you, and I hope you have a great night or day or whatever time it is when you're watching this. Bye.